Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today our group will be presenting about Islamic Revivalism in Malaysia. This is our group member, which is me, Muhammad Raiman bin Muhammad Zaidi, Muhammad Ajibuddin bin Abdul Rahman, and Muhammad Hafizan Hakimi bin Suhardi. This is our table of content: introduction, cause of the Islamic Revivalism in Malaysia, Islamic Revivalism in Malaysia, which divided into three time periods: 1970 until 1980, 1980 until 1990, 1990 until 2000, effect of the Islamic Revivalism in Malaysia, and lastly the conclusion. Next, which is introduction. Islam is the official religion of Malaysia and is enforced within the federal constitution. Islam and Malay, which comprise of 60% of Malaysian population, are synonymous to each other. The involvement of Islamic scholars in Malaysian independence movement gave the picture on how Islam is important as a part of Malaysian life. For example, Sheikh Abdullah Fahim was responsible to choose the date for our independence. Tok Kenali, Tok Jangkut, Kiai Haji Saleh, Syekh Abdul Rahman Limbau. It became the foundation of the Islamic Revivalism in Malaysia. Despite the contribution of Islamic scholars in the independence of Malaysia, Malaysia did not strive to become an Islamic state in the post-independence years. Instead of became selective in their own interpretation of Islamic policies. The secular and liberal kind of administration led to the rise of some Islamic-oriented organizations that challenged the situation and become the catalyst of the Islamic revivalism in Malaysia.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Najib bin Abdul Rahman. Now we go to the cause of Islamic revivalism in Malaysia. Islamic revivalism in Malaysia began in the late of the 1970s, which is two groups were directly involved in this movement. The first one, the Arabic and Religious Educated Group, and the second one, yours educated in English and Malay. The first group began to espouse Islam and urge the Malay populace to uphold the teaching of the Al-Quran and the Hadith in the years soon after Merdeka. Its members worked not only for the purification of Islam from superstitious belief or practice, but also for a total liberation of Muslim Malays from an Islamic mental bondage. That we know, at that time, there are many superstitious belief or practice that again from true teaching of Islam. Next, this religious teacher regularly organized Kuliah Subuh in mosques and surau. They were also active in institutions of higher learning, where they give thought of the practicality of Islam as a way of life and gain popularity among the students. The interesting part about this is, this group did not receive any salary or reward because they were sincere to help people. May Allah grant them Jannah, inshallah. Next, this Arabic and religious educated group include many people who operated through Islamic organization, prominent among which were the Jama'at Tabligh and Darul Arqam. Both the Jama'at Tabligh and the Darul Arqam were responsible at the beginning for the spread of fundamentalist ideas at grassroots level. The former was initially dominated by Indian and Pakistani Muslims, but later had a large Malay following as well. As a result, the latter was led by an ex-government religious teacher, Ustaz Ashari, who first established the movement in Setapak in the state of Selangor. Next, we go to the second group. The second group were active on two fronts, which is in Malaysia and overseas. In Malaysia, they comprise about 15% of the undergraduate and graduate of local university, while their knowledge of Islam not many or not so much like first group. However, they overcome this lack of knowledge which they read widely in Islamic subject or regularly attend usrah conducted by their ustad. And they also emphasized the role of organization in working out their plan for the re-Islamization of society. And among students involved in Islamic work was through participation in their respective Persatuan Islam. And in 1971, several graduated from the University Kebangsaan Malaysia (UKM) and some other institutions of higher learning formed the Muslim Youth Organisation or Angkatan Belia Islam ABIM to provide a platform for the graduating students from the respective university and college who had been active in dakwah activity to continue their Islamic activities. And the objective was to generate an Islamic movement as the path to Islamic revival in Malaysia. And students who had been active in Islamic work abroad also joined ABIM on their return. Next, the society also managed to bring into its fold several youths from the Arabic and religious educated group, including some Al-Azhar graduates who later became leaders in the organization. And since its inception, ABIM has been most vociferous in propagating the ideal of the Sharia, and its activity have greatly contributed to the nationwide Islamic awakening among the younger generation Malay.
First time period, which is Islamic Revivalism in Malaysia in 1970 until 1980. Okay, the start of Dawah resurgence, the increase of Dawah activity across Malaysia. Starting from 1974, the rise of Dawah activity across the Peninsular Malaysia, especially in Selangor and newly created Kuala Lumpur, Terengganu, Perak and Johor, which known as conservative states, were the least affected by the Dawah resurgence. Although the classic religious learning in the mosque still continued in those states, most of the affected states were due to the number of the young educated people that started to indulge in the writing of Middle Eastern scholars like Muhammad Abduh, Rashid Redha and others. Most of this dawah activity also conducted by the young educated people who have the background in learning Arabic, and also the one who graduated from the English and Malay institution. The dawah activity also resulted in many of the Malays turn to Quran and Sunnah for guidance, as many influenced by the writings of the Middle Eastern scholars. As a reaction, the Malaysian government also participated in the process. The creation of Yayasan Sebaran Islam in 1974, officiated by Tun Abdul Razak. Their mission is to propagate the Islamic da'wah and to organize the welfare of Muslims across Malaysia. This organization, later known as the Yayasan Dakwah Islamiyah Malaysia (YADIM). Tun Hussein On launched a nationwide Bulan Dakwah or Missionary Month in 1978. He encouraged Muslims in Malaysia to adhere strictly to Islamic teachings. This program also became a tool for government to combat the communism which was rampant at that time and social problems like the drug addiction, because by learning the Islamic values, we also promoted the moral values for people, especially Muslims, to do the good things or to practice the good habits. The rise of the three vocal Islamic-oriented organizations, ABIM, Darul Arqam, and Jamaat Tabligh, which constantly encouraged the Malaysian government to normalize Islam in the administration and also Malaysian society. These three organizations will later be explained in detail by my partner after this. Okay, next, the role of PAS in political revivalism. The Islamist party with the mission to promote Islamic governance. The role of PAS began as the religious wing of UMNO in order to satisfy the demand of Muslim Malays under the name of Persatuan Ulama Malaysia, Pan-Malayan Union of Religiously Learned. In 1951, the PAS broke away due to the UMNO demand for liberalization of the citizenship requirements and other national issues. As you can see, the regulation of citizenship requirement, which is to give the full citizenship to the non-Malays, especially the Chinese and the Indians, which rejected by the past, led to the transformation of Islam as political revivalism in Malaysia. As you can see, at the first time in Malaysia, we see a group of Islamists to form a political parties, which give rise to a new kind of what we call a new Islam, or a new kind of interpretation of Islam. Later they changed the name to the party Islam Malaysia PAS. As you can see, before this, politics and Islam is not intertwined for further involvement of Islam in the politics, rather than Islam is a part of the practice in religions. However, PAS changed that perception. They unite the Muslims, especially the one who anti-UMNO in Malaysia from 1950s until 1970s. We can see many of the groups that against UMNO also participate or join the PAS within these years. Ideologically, Parti Islam Malaysia traditionally represent a complex, contradictive combination of radical socialist and conservative feudal Malay nationalism. In the context of Islam, it represents both reformist and traditionalist Islamists. We will see this both kind of ideas later give some difficulties to the past. Past contribution in the Islamic resurgence were different from the way of the UMNO use, which focused more on nationalist cause. As you can see, UMNO also wanted to represent Islam in their own way, in the form of the nationalists. They are very selective in choosing Islamic policies. However, as for the path they choose, which is a fundamentalistic way, and sometimes contradicted with their reformist ideas. This, as you can see, Islamic revivalism that happened in Malaysia gave past opportunity and also difficulties in balancing the needs of fundamentalists and reformists, because reformists brought something new about the Islam practices. However, traditionalists, which is a major and the first one who started the past, have to cooperate with this kind of the new ideas. Some of them are rather against, and some of them sometimes even try to tolerate between each other. In 1978, the benefits of Islamic revivalism used by PAS to increase its popularity among Muslim Malays. They also become more critical towards the governments. In 1979, PAS showed their support for Iranian revolution. As you can see from this development, in around 1970s and 1980s, we can see the rise of the Islamic revivalism in Malaysia. So many people become aware of the Islamic teachings, and they have expressed their needs for Islam within the government policy, government administration. However, at that time, government did not portray this kind of things, but rather selective. So many try and want to rely on the past for this. So that's why past gained their popularity during this time. The impact of Islamic revivalism in Malaysia led to the tussle between UMNO and PAS to show who represent Islam the most. They also became the center for the Islamists across Malaysia together and participate in Malaysian politics, representing the political Islam. As you can see here, the use of the word political Islam is rather, someone might agree and someone might not agree with the use. However, in the reality, they goes in both ways. UMNO and PAS also try to use this kind of political Islam in order to gain or to attract the voters in order to vote for them. As you can see, UMNO rather promote Islam in the nationalistic way, and the past are rather radical and more critical in imposing and wanted to the government to implement the true Islamic policies, through Islamic governance within the process.
Next, I will talk about Islam revivalism in Malaysia in 1980 until 1989. Mahathir's first premiership. His premiership made Malaysia more at odds with the West. He wanted Malaysia to move away from the influence of them. Mahathir started to go with the anti-West stand, like doing various policy like buy British laws and look to the east. This would cause Malaysia alienated from its traditional allies, which were the West. In return, he tried to find other allies in terms of same religion or perhaps non-allied nation. He also tried to make Malaysia as a Muslim state or nation and increase its involvement in OIC. Not only that, the government also supported various Islamic movements and sponsored the establishment of the Southeast Asia Islamic Research Center. He also made the education of Islamic religious knowledge into the Malaysia's national education examination. The Malaysia's economy also were more in line with the Islamic one in his time. These policies convinced Anwar Ibrahim, the leader of a movement called ABIM, join UMNO, which instead of PAS, which were many of his colleagues went to. Rise of Anwar Ibrahim. Anwar's participation in UMNO led to various Islamic elements entered the government. He entered the government's party in 1982. He was given the position of Deputy Minister in charge of religious affairs in Mahathir's cabinet. During his time, various programs were established. Establishment of Islamic Medical Center, the founding of International Islamic University in 1983, which he would become the second president of the university after Tun Hussein on. During his time, he also upgrading the Islamic Center as the nerve center of the government's Islamic bureaucracy. During later years, he gained much better position in Mahathir's cabinet, like Minister of Agriculture, Minister of Education, and lastly, Minister of Finance, and also Deputy Prime Minister, which make him the second in line into the premiership. Through these positions, he was able to change even more policy towards Islam, which even one of them member quote, the Islamization were put in place into the Islamic in the party. Also, various Islamic governmental schools were opened because of during his time as Deputy Prime Minister, which his last position later on. Malaysia's participation in OIC. Since Malaysia moved towards the Muslim bloc, which is a bloc which contained all the Muslim nations by 1980s, its participation in OIC were higher than before. Mahathir's foreign policy dictated that the government would no longer prioritize the Commonwealth and the non-aligned movements as much with the Muslim bloc in 1983. Tun Mahathir also wanted Malaysia to be in line with the OIC. Also, in 1981 Jeddah conference, he wanted to exercise some sort of leadership in the OIC, in which he urged the Muslim nation to translate slogans into action instead of just say and doing nothing. He also stated that this nation should stop depending on the West for trade and commerce. Of course, because of this, relation between Malaysia and the OIC members were close. Malaysia also started to have a much better trade relation with the oil-rich Middle East country, which enriched Malaysia's economy. Malaysia supported PLO, or Palestinian Liberation Organization, so much that even to the point that Yasser Arafat said that Malaysia is even closer to us than some of the Arab nations. Malaysia seemed like to give a moral support to the Afghanistan Mujahideen during Soviet-Afghanistan war. The halal industry in Malaysia, although Jakim were established in 1998, the halal itself was already prevalent in 1980s because of the da'wah movements that happening before. This halal thing was started in 1974, although it is not what it is today according to Jakim website. It was issued by the Research Center of the Islamic Affairs Division of the Prime Minister's Office. It's more like only in a certification paper instead of full-blown logo. As I said, the logo did not actually full establish until 1998 and perhaps evolved into what it is today in 2004. Muslims in Malaysia during that time realized how this happened because Muslims in Malaysia realized how important the halal were to them after being influenced by the Islamic organizations. This, as you see here, this is KFC menu in 1980s, which said the Tanggong Halal, which I will mention after this. Why is it the reason that now the KFC started to, the fast food chain started to set this? Before this, Muslims would eat any food except pork when not in non-Muslim home, or perhaps a celebration when a non-Muslim bring food or something like that. After this, they began to care about what food they ate. Fast food were now more careful, as I said before, in terms of serving it to Muslim in order to get their license stay input and not being revoked by the government. 5-star hotels were even divided their kitchen into halal and non-halal kitchen. IIUM establishment. IIUM was established officially in 20th May in 1983 by Tun Dr. Mahathir. It was based on the concept of garden virtue and knowledge. Before IIUM was established, there are a few local universities. The UM, which is the oldest university in Malaya, or Malaysia in this case, since it was established long during the British colonial era. UKM, National University of Malaysia. UPM, or University Pertanian, which they will evolve into University Putra of Malaysia later on. Of course, this university were more like Western type of style of education. There were even demands to have an Islamic university in Malaysia, which I will talk next. This part I will talk about the timeline of how it was established. This in 12th January 1982, the decision to establish an international Islamic university in Malaysia was made known by the Honorable Prime Minister of Malaysia, Datuk Sri Dr. Mahathir Mohamad. During this time, he didn't receive tun because this will be an honorary which he received later on. The concept paper for the establishment of the International Islamic University of Malaysia was approved by the Prime Minister and his cabinet under the supervision of Datuk Dr. Sulaiman Daud, which was the Minister of Education during that time. A steering committee was set up to coordinate an establishment of International Islamic University of Malaysia. In 1982, Professor Dr. Arifin Suhaimi of University of Pertanian, which means Agriculture University, was appointed by the Minister of Education to be the coordinator of the project. Later in August 1982, the 13th OIC Islamic Foreign Ministers held meeting in Niamey, Niger, endorsed Malaysia's proposal for the establishment of the International Islamic University in Malaysia. In May 1983, several countries decided to co-sponsor the establishment of the Islamic University. 10 days later, the Islamic University IIUM was officially established, and 10 days later, the university obtained its establishment order from HM, the King of Malaysia or Agong. 27th May, in the same year, its Board of Governors held its first meeting. Fun fact, IIUM was originally like a private university instead of what they call public university during this time, which why there's a Board of Governors and everything. And in 1983, the Sultan of Pahang was appointed as the first constitutional head of the university. And a few weeks later, they accept an intake of 153 students, which is quite little compared to today, like thousands students. And in September 3rd, the Right Honourable the previous Prime Minister Tun Hussein On was appointed as the first president of the university, and later on in 16th September, University Senate was established. And other thing is, after the death of Tun Hussein On, he was replaced by none other than Anwar Ibrahim, which was mentioned before. And also, its chancellor during this time were a foreigner from Egypt. That's all from this one. NGOs, ABIM, JIM, or ISC. Various groups were established during previous period and perhaps this time also, but some were against the government and some just focus on social issues. First, we're gonna talk about ABIM. It was formed in 6th August 1971 by the Faculty of Islamic Studies in UKM. It was organized by those who joined PKPIM, which is an organization already exists in 1960s. Most of its members were originally from this previous organization. Even Anwar Ibrahim was the president of this organization. It was moderate in nature. Most of its members were art students only, and only a few of them were from science side. The most famous members were the leaders of PAS and PKR today. How ABIM gained its funding? They created education fund, which is Yayasan Anda. They would provide like cheap school for the poor, and this would provide many cadres and money, and also, as I said, money to support their cause. And they also do humanitarian stuff, doing in 1980s and 1990s. Which include the Yugoslavian War. Now we're gonna move on to IRC, and their perception, they were established secretly and much more radical in terms of its approach and ideologically compared to ABIM. They were much intolerant towards the other group, definitely, like ABIM and also PAS, calling them impure and not Islamic enough. Although ironically they would infiltrate this organization to bring, but fail to like take over ABIM, for instance. This, as I said just now, would cause divide, and those who were sometimes expelled by this organization. This organization were organized by students who were studied from overseas, especially most of them were science side students who were originally sponsored by the government, especially the UK. This overseas student usually from UK and all. They would form a new organization under the name of Jamaah Islah Malaysia in 1990, and they would gain support for the government until the sect of Anwar in 1998. It would continue until 2012, where they finally merged with another organization known as IKRAM. The schools and every assets, which were it's school, they also do like similar stuff to ABIM, but and the school is called like Al Amin schools, and every other asset were transferred to this organization. That's all from me. My friend will continue from 1990s until now.
Now we go to the Islam revivalism in Malaysia between 1980 until 2000. Next, we go to the pondok system standardization, which is early Islamic education faced a huge change as the sentiment of Islamic revivalism in Malaysia on the rise. The first one is establishment of internal organization to strengthen the pondok institution, which previously each pondok institution operated on its own. Now this has changed as most are now moving collective and in an organizational manner. Several bodies and associations have been established to safeguard the welfare and development of the institution. Among them is Yayasan Pembangunan Pondok Malaysia, YPPM, Pertubuhan Hal Ehwal Sekolah Agama Kedah, HISA, and Pusat Pembangunan Pondok Berhad, PPPB. Next. The government has founded a non-governmental organization, NGO, the Yayasan Pembangunan Pondok Malaysia YPPN on 1 August 2012. The foundation is under the patronage of the Prime Minister of Malaysia, Datuk Seri Muhammad Najib bin Tun Haji Abdul Razak, and Datuk Dr. Masyitah binti Ibrahim as the Executive Chairman of YPPM. In Kedah, Pertubuhan Hal Ehwal Sekolah Agama Kedah HISA was founded on 2 April 2008 and was approved as an organisation on 20 December 2011. And the organisation aims to bring together religious and pondok school in Kedah, raise contribution and funds for the welfare to registered religious and pondok school in Kedah and others. Next, in Kelantan, in effort to uphold the pondok institution, Pusat Pembangunan Pondok Berhad (PPPB) was established in 1995 and registered under the Malaysian Company Acts. PPPB was founded to develop pondok institution under its supervision, comprising aspects of administration, finance, welfare, infrastructure development, and basic amenities that need to be prepared. Therefore, 14 pondok institutions that have registered with PPPB in Kelantan. That lot, right? Next, we go to the financial assistance. Previously, pondok institutions received financial assistance from individuals and members of the public, zakat and wakaf for the purpose of management. And the teacher there also do not have a fixed income and depend on contribution to survive. So, the Malaysian government has given adequate financial assistance to pondok institution, which is, for example, in 2014 budget, the government allocated RM50 million to access religious school and pondok institution in Malaysia. Next, establishment modern pondok institution, which is there are many. So I took only one, which is Pondok Sungai Durian, Kuala Karai, Kelantan, has also taken the initiative to dividing learning session into two systems, which is traditional and modern. And its name was also changed to Madrasah Muhammadiyah Sungai Durian. In the traditional system, exams were introduced to enable students to continue their studies to higher level while not neglecting traditional methods like halaqah and lectures. Meanwhile, the modern system is based on schooling system according to syllabus by Yayasan Islam Kelantan (YIK) and some addition to balance it with pondok learning syllabus. Next, we go to the application of Islamic values in education policies, which is the implementation of Islamic value in Malaysian administration. Next, the installation of Islamic value policy in the civil service was introduced in 1985, aimed at providing the awareness and commitment of the Muslim society in Malaysia to instill Islamic value in its organizational and administration and management at all levels. There are also initiatives which the strategies are in the form, program and publication, which training, course and seminar and conference are held to improve the awareness and understanding of the importance of good value and ethics among the civil servants. In fact, few books have been published as reference and guideline for all civil servants at all levels, which is the book entitled Values and Ethics in Public Administration, Nilai dan Etika dalam Perkhidmatan Awam, and 12 Pillar Tonggak 12 are two apparent examples. And next, an outline of an Islamic work ethic which was produced by the Malaysian government in 1987. The emphasis is on working with commitment, honesty, diligence, efficiency, teamwork, and collective peace. And in 2004, the Code of Ethics for the Government Backbenchers was launched. The Code of Ethics outlined their duty to Parliament, conduct in their official affairs, their general conduct, and declaration of their assets. This is followed by the National Integrity Plan and Resolution 2008, an autonomous institution. The Malaysian Integrity Institute was established to act as a monitoring and coordinating agency to ensure that the plan and strategy are finally met. Now we go to the post 9/11 incident effect on Malaysia role. Okay, that we know post 9/11 incident have give huge impact to the Muslim world, includes Malaysia also. So what Malaysia did? First, the coercive apparatus is comprised of a number of repressive laws enforced by an obedient police force. The law include the Internet Security Act (ISA), the Printing, Press and Publication Act, the Immigration Ordinance, the Official Secret Act, and the Sedition Act. The legislation is preventive in nature and focused on maintaining the political status quo and limiting any physical or ideological challenge to the regime legitimacy. For example, the ISA provides for preventing detention and allows the government to extend the period of detention by a period of 2 years, so this can continue indefinitely with minimal judicial review. Next. Mahathir response to the changing dynamic of the post-9/11 world was to formulate a unique ideology which both support and condemn the approach of the US, which is Mahathir pledged his support for America's campaign against international terrorism and quickly signed on to the war on terror. However, when the US was planning an attack on Afghanistan and other Muslim countries in retaliation, Muslim trade opinion was unsympathetic and even hostile to the United States. Mahathir also used this opportunity to skillfully demonstrate his independence of mind by unequivocally condemning terrorism on the one hand while also arguing that it is its cause that should also be addressed and overcome rather than just trying to eliminate its symptoms. For example, issues Palestine. Next, we go to Islam Hadari concept. In the picture, I think everyone is know who is he, which is Yang Beramat Datuk Seri Abdullah Ahmad Badawi. Next, what is Islam? What Islam Hadari? According to Datuk Seri Abdullah Ahmad Badawi, Islam Hadari or civilizational and cooperative Islam is not an inclusive concept as it also emphasizes the importance of progress with an Islamic perspective in the economic, social and political field. Islam Hadari emphasizes the need for balanced development which cover both physical and spiritual development. And Islam Hadari is an effort to bring the Ummah back to basics, back to the fundamental as described in the Quran and the Hadith that form the foundation of Islamic civilization. The main objective that Islam Hadari is trying to achieve in Malaysia can be summed up in the following 8 points, but I only give you 3 points because there are too many. The first one, restoring moderation and embracing the mainstream, which will help strengthen both the people and the state. The second one, valuing good character, which should be central to the society in order to help it become a role model for both the Ummah and community as a whole. And the third one, adopting seriousness and accountability in dealing with society main undertaking. Reason why Islam Hadari introduced by Prime Minister Abdullah Ahmad Badawi. First, it was introduced month before parliamentary election in 2004, giving Badawi promise to tackle Malaysia endemic corruption and promote a progressive Islamic faith. However, Islam Hadari should not be viewed merely as a political instrument, which is Prime Minister Badawi envisioned Islam Hadari as an antidote to the tide of extremism ravaging the larger Muslim world at a time when many Muslim nations are struggling to reconcile peace with modern realities. Next, we go to the spread of wearing hijab. There are many causes of the spread of wearing hijab, which is first, as Islam further exposed audience to religious content on broadcast and print media, the integration of Islam in the education and politics through Islam Hadari that was introduced by former Prime Minister Datuk Seri Abdullah Ahmad Badawi had possibly magnified the need for Malays to represent as Muslim. As marketing of halal product in Malaysia became a norm, images of the hijab in the media was adjusted to the group identity of Malay hijabis. And this publication present the construct of ideal womanhood through glamorous clothing and makeup, and subsequently wearing the hijab is considered as a privilege where its significance is measured from its connection to popular culture and materialism. Next, the exclusivity of the hijab is perceived by highly educated women as proponent of egalitarian Islamic ideology as the objectification of women's bodies in media determine audience expectation of their self and govern their self-confidence. As a result, Malaysia is experiencing climate of hijab elite through the widespread growth of hijab brand. As example, Farida recorded revenue of RM 30 million in 2013 alone by marketing luxury hijab design that are catered to high profit and affluent wearers. Another essential factor that contributes to the steadfast hijab movement is the move by male figures such as Niloufar and Bibi Yusuf to start veiling after achieving their celebrity status. In addition to this recursive pattern, advance of networking sites like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram correspond to the use of traditional media in Malaysia, such as hijab-centric television programs such as Hijabku, Gayaku. This also contributes to the spread of wearing hijab. Now we go to nasyid industry on the rise. As you can see in the picture, legendary nasyid Malaysia, Raihan Rabbani Hijaz. I think few of us still remember and hear their song until now, like me. Next. In 1990, a project to create a nasyid era baru was commissioned by the Islamic Affairs Department of the Prime Minister Department. This was in keeping with the new narrative of modernity Wawasan 2020 promoted by then Prime Minister of Malaysia Dr. Mahathir Mohamad. Islam was to play an essential role in realizing this vision. The concept of nasyid era baru was actualized in a live television performance at the National Nasyid Competition in 1994. The performance was repeated at the closing night of the 1995 Quran reading competition. The nasyid era baru was a total performance incorporating nasyid song, dance, theatre, poetry, and tunes, including the use of costume and props. And according to Fakrih bin Datuk Haji Lokman, and a UiTM lecturer involved in producing and composing nasyid for the performance, the use of the new media as well as digital lighting and sound system and the use of contemporary forms of art show Islam as dynamic and capable of adaptation and assimilation in order to survive the condition of modern world. Taking the cue from Darul Arqam Nada Murni and Nasyid Era Baru, a new commercial form of nasyid known as pop nasyid emerged in Malaysia in the 1990s, which is the pop nasyid maintaining lyric praising Allah and extolling Islamic values and the teaching of the Prophet. Commercial pop nasyid song was sung a cappella in 2 or 3 part harmony or with instrumental accompaniment. They were produced and distributed to mass audience by recording companies. The pioneer of commercial pop nasyid is the group Raihan. And following of Raihan, other nasyid pop groups have emerged in Malaysia, such as Hijaz, Rabbani Brothers, and Intim. And the female group also include, which is Hawa, Soleha, and Mawadah. School children are even setting up their own group, which is Star, 1 August 1997, and other pop singers such as Wahida, Mawi, and Ramli Sarip have jumped on the bandwagon. As a result, pop nasyid is popular among younger Muslims as it is modern, Islamic, and yet Malaysian. I think this.
Next, the effect of the Islamic revivalism in Malaysia as Islam strive in all aspects of life in Malaysia. The increase of awareness among Malay Muslims about Islamic teachings, we can see many people, especially the younger generation, try to practice the true Islamic teachings. As for the parents, Muslim parents, they will encourage and brought their sons to join the Quranic classes as young as the 5 years old. This shows that the people are more aware about the Islam during this time due to the cause of the Islamic revivalism. Also, the establishment of Islamic-oriented schools in national and state educational system. SMKA, Sekolah Menengah Kebahasaan Agama, SABK, Sekolah Agama Bawah Kerajaan, Mahad, dan SPPI, Sekolah Berasma Penuh Integrasi. All of these Islamic-oriented schools been organized and managed by the Islamic sector within the Ministry of Education in order to promote the idea of integration of both conventional and Islamic knowledge together. And also the empowerment of Islamic Council like JAKIM and State Islamic Council, JAIS, JAIB and others. This kind of organization have been become a central role within the development of Islamic policies actually, because as JAKIM they supervise over the halal certification, and also for the State Islamic Councils supervise on preventing maksiat. And lastly, the enforcement of Sharia courts, in which Sharia courts become more relevant within the Malaysian legal system rather than being neglected. It also encouraged the Sharia lawyer to become more prominent within the Malaysian legal system, and so on. Okay. Lastly, the conclusion. The Islamic revivalism in Malaysia benefited many Malay Muslims in Malaysia in many ways, either through politics, as we can see, the administration adopted the Islamic policies within their own governance, or education, the education which is lastly, the conclusion. The Islamic revivalism in Malaysia benefited many Malay Muslims in Malaysia in many ways, either through politics, and we can see the administration adopted the Islamic policies for their governance, or education, more Islamic oriented schools being built, and also social, which is we can see as people try to practice more of the Islamic values and others. The challenging parts also included as the non-Muslim community, which is the comprise of the 40% of Malaysian population, especially the Chinese and Indians, may not like the strict Islamization of the society, while the core of Malay population still imbued with the old Islamic concept, which will oppose the Islamic revivalism at some point. These kind of things we can see that there are still traditionalists, which is the major part of the Malay population. Actually, this can be traced back with the rivalry between the kaum muda and kaum tua, the traditionalists as reformists and reformists. However, during these times, these two factions are rather tolerating with each other, and rather than arguing with each other, because then they know that if they argue, things will not come to end well. So rather than arguing, better tolerating with each others and come up with a good conclusion. However, at some point, due to these differences, they will have troubles actually in the non-cooperative, or some that which is rather extreme, or rather extreme, or non-tolerant with each other. So that's all for us. Thank you.